So I wanted to introduce you to binomial or division by binomials, and we'll do some more of this in the next video lesson. But so number 28, and I actually cut off a little bit here because they actually set it up kind of like number 30 where they kind of started out for you. But I wanted to show you the full process, so and then we can check out number 30 as well. But remember, for me, I like to put the bar underneath here just so I know that I'm dividing by this whole value, right? Not just the 2. So that's just something that I do that I learned from professors and teachers before. So anyway, what you do is when you have a binomial, you take it one step at a time. You first look at the first term and then the next term and so forth and so on. But we lead with the first term in our binomial that we're dividing by, the first term in our divisor, right? So remember, this is the divisor, this is the dividend. What we get up here will be our quotient, and then we'll have a remainder possibly. So I'm going to lead with the x. And so when we think about, okay, just like if we're doing long division with numbers, we think about how many times does this divisor go into the first number, right, and so forth. So now we're going to say how many times does x go into negative 3x, okay? So we're basically just doing a little individual negative 3x divided by x in our head, right? So negative 3x divided by x is just negative 3, right? Let me use a different color here. So we get negative 3, right, because the x's cancel out, and so we just end up with negative 3. So that's what we put on top. And then just like with long division in numbers, we multiply this, right? We multiply the number that we just got here by our divisor, okay? So we do negative 3 times x, and we get negative 3x, okay? And then we do negative 3 times 2, and we get negative 6. All right, so we distribute this to each of the terms here, right? So we're doing the number we just got, negative 3, multiplied by x plus 2, right? And we get negative 3x minus 6. Okay, and so now we subtract just like we would if we were dividing with numbers. And so this time I'm going to be a little more intentional about it. So before we didn't even write, on the example that we did earlier, we didn't even write a minus there, right? We just subtracted. So this time I'm actually going to write a minus here just to be very intentional about what we're doing, because now we have a binomial. So this minus doesn't only affect this, but it also affects this, right? So what it does is it changes these signs here, right? So so what I want you to do is whenever you get ready to subtract, change the sign. So this changes to a positive, and I circle it just to remind myself, oh yeah, I changed that, right? And this changes to a positive, okay? So we change the signs because we're subtracting, right? We're multiplying by that imaginary negative 1 there, right? And so now we can subtract. So negative 3x plus 3x, those cancel out, right? And so we just get 0 there, right? You don't have to write the 0. And then we have 4 plus 6, which is 10. All right? And since there aren't any x's here, that means that x won't go into it, right? So that means we have a plus 0 here, and I'm just going to leave the plus 0 out. But so we have our quotient is negative 3. Oops, quotient. And then we have our remainder here, right? All right. So that's basically how you do long division with polynomials, with binomials, okay? And remember, we could also write this as negative 3 plus 10 over the divisor x plus 2, and that's how we'll write it some of the time, okay? So in this case, they just want you to identify the quotient and remainder. So this is good, right? We have our quotient here, our remainder here, and so that's all we have to do on that one. All right, so let's check out number 30. So here the same thing, right? Here they get us started, and they actually did. Okay, let me move this over. So they did this first part for us where they said, okay, well, x squared divided by x, right? They took the first term here with our first term in the divisor, and they basically figured, oh yeah, x squared divided by x to the first is just x to the first, right? 2 minus 1 is 1. And so then they put the x up here, okay? And then once they did that, they multiplied this x by each of these terms, right? X times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x, right? Okay, so that's how they got this here. So now what are we going to do? We're going to subtract, right? So remember, we're going to multiply this imaginary -1 to each of these. That's what we do when we subtract. And so this is going to end up being a negative, right? I'm going to circle it just to remember that I changed it. And this is going to be a negative, right? So I circle it just to remember when I look back through my notes that I changed that sign, right? Because sometimes if you just write it, especially like this here, you know, it looks like you had a plus to begin with, or you might forget that you changed it. So this lets me know that I changed it. So if I need to go back and check my work, I know that I did that part. Or if I didn't circle it, then I know I need to, maybe that's something I forgot to do. All right, so anyway, these cancel out, x squared minus x. And this is how, when you do polynomial long division, those first terms should always cancel out if you got the right number up here, or the right value up there. All right, so then we have negative 3x minus 4x. So that's negative 7x, right? So we get negative 7x here. Then we bring down the 2, the plus 2. And now we do the same thing. So now here we do have an x, right? So we can do this divided by our leading term here, right? So we can do negative 7x divided by x in our head, right? The x's cancel out, and so we get just negative 7, right? So I'm going to put that up here, negative 7. Okay, so this value here goes up here, and now we're going to distribute again. Negative 7 multiplied by x is negative 7x, right? And then negative 7 multiplied by 4 is negative 28, right? Okay, and so now I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to pretend like I have a -1 out front and change the signs of these numbers. Okay, and now we can subtract. So negative 7x plus 7x, those cancel out, right? Remember, this should always cancel out if you have the right number up here. And then 2 plus 28 is 30, right? So that's our remainder. So our quotient here is x minus 7, and our remainder is 30. All right, and that's how it's done. So our answer is x minus 7, remainder 30, or we can write this as x minus 7 plus 30 over x plus 4, right? So I wanted to show you one more thing, and we're not going to do this full problem, but I just wanted to show you that a problem like this we can set up as a long division problem, just like we did on the previous one, where we say, okay, the divisor, right, we put that on the left with long division, and then we put the dividend underneath, and then we can do the same thing that we just did on the last problem, right? And so just to show you that this translates into this, right? All right.